Hi, thanks very much for joining us. So this is the final session in the three-part series focused on improving your logistics documents and, most importantly, recognizing those export documents that go out to clients and your wider supply chain are correct for your needs as well as theirs. So what we're hoping to cover off is ways to basically save time around the controls that you need, as well as the dealing with the risk around security, making sure that it's adhering to all the requirements that you have as an organization and your clients, and bringing that process into your daily lives, really. So what I'm wanting to do in our three-part series is to basically cover off those bits, as well as show you examples of how that can be done through Compleo. So let's begin. Right, so as part of the webinar series, what we've planned to tackle is these sort of key elements that we've drawn to your attention about how Compleo Hybrid could be so useful for an organization like yourselves in the logistics supply chain. So what we sort of ironed out in essentially a quick phrase is going digital, what that means, and helping yourselves with that, going as far as digital documents and managing that whole process as seamless as possible, and doing the whole thing faster, so going faster, especially around sort of invoicing and making sure that people pay faster, which is clearly important. And the one we're going to touch on today is about go cost effective, which is essentially making sure all your processes are as automated as possible and that whole flow is as seamless as possible. So let's begin. Right, so as part of the webinar's session today is concerned, we hope to tackle in 4 parts, which is essentially the webinar series and what that means for yourself, and actually the conclusion of all the discussions that we've had to date around logistics, as well as sort of making and understanding the ways we can simplify complex approval workflows that you might have and might need in your organization, as well as touching upon the power of being cost effective in this day and age, where clearly the big importance for us all is to make our organizations as essentially to make intelligent automation as widespread as possible in the organization. Why? To basically make it as cost effective as possible. So I'm hopefully going to touch upon a story there as well as sort of Diane and Charlotte's going to join us and covering off those previous stories that we've touched upon, but focusing specifically around the e-invoicing element here and the whole workflow elements. So let's continue. So digitalizing document management. So this is clearly the first element around going digital. We've touched upon in the last session about how to go faster and be paid faster. During this session, what we're going to touch upon is how we can help you save time and reduce the risk. So what does that mean? Saving time really clearly, as we've touched upon, allows you to focus on the controls you need to make sure that those time savings are real. And then the risk element is making sure that from a security perspective, everything that you need to focus on and make as concrete as possible as far as compliance and so on and so forth helps you strengthen up your export process and validation. And really what we're hoping to touch upon here is from a supply chain perspective is extending that security element as far as we can together. So from a validation and approval element, it's clearly from a management perspective, clearly important to make sure that elements are guaranteed around traceability and who gave approvals and so on and so forth, and then exceptions and dealing with dealing with those exceptional speeds and safety around making sure that people get it in a timely fashion. So it's clearly from an automation perspective, it's as automated as possible, and that process isn't delayed at any point during the system. And clearly from an invoicing perspective, we can help allow these workflows to help you reduce your late payments from customers, as well as improving, which we've touched on before, the overall response and efficiency for the entire organization. So now we're sort of going to drive into the first demo, that Diane Charlotte has available for us. So what we're planning to do is clearly, as I mentioned, focusing on the invoicing workflow. Why is that important? So, clearly in this day and age, automation is sort of a catch-all phrase, but really from our perspective, what we see this as is an increase in cost effectiveness for your entire organization, wherever they may be, in your automation cycle, let's say, or drive to be as automated as possible. So let's find out a bit more about the demonstration and what that looks like. We've prepared a simple example, which Diane will touch upon, but in essence, we're trying to make sure that invoices are get out to the client as quickly as possible, as well as getting validated from different members of staff. So in this example, we've got a manager and a director, and in certain scenarios, clearly the director will have precedence over the manager or needs to be involved in the approval process. So let's find out from Diane Charlotte what she plans to cover during this session.
We're going to see the validation process from a director who needs to validate an invoice before sending them automatically to a client account payable manager. So we created a template who connects the invoice to a special workflow. So here we see that in Compleo Console, which is the environment for review documents, the invoice arrived, so we are under the director profile, and if we accept it, then an email is going to be sent to so an email is going to be sent to the account payable manager with this invoice that we can see here.
So thanks very much, Diane Charlotte. So really from that, we've taken that, things can be as simple as possible, as simple as need be. And over the next couple of sessions, or next couple of demos, we plan to make that a bit more complicated and a bit more real to your organization. So really for us, it's the simplest workflow we could possibly do from an automation perspective. And we basically here at the back end to make sure that process is done as quickly as possible using our technology. So really for us, we're trying to make this simpler for you to understand, as well as, I guess for us, it's really making sure that this can be as complicated as you need it. So there's a few clients who've gone off that first example, who have now realized this can be rolled out to a lot more members of staff and leverage that to find out a bit more capability within their team, and that's useful to everybody involved. So let's find out what the next session has for us. So as you can see, step 2 is a bit more complicated, and there's levels to it, as well as not just a standard invoice. There's parameters that are taken into place. So let's find out from Diane Charlotte what she has to show us on this one.
The first document workflow, we introduce a manager who validates every invoice, who are then sent to the client's account payable manager. Unless the total amount is over 50K, then the director needs to validate them. So what we did is we took the same template as before, but we added a new variable, which is the total amount. So in this one, which is 7,000, only the manager is going to have to review it. So here in the director profile, we don't see anything. So if we go to the manager one, we can see that here we have this document to review, which is the invoice from before, and then we are going to receive it here. In the meantime, I'm going to try to, we're going to see what's happening if we take an invoice. So here we changed the amount. So here we received the email for this invoice for 7,000 euros, around 7,000 euros. You can see it here. And so now we can go for the second invoice, which is higher. So we validate it with the manager account, and then we're going to see that it directly arrived into the director area under console. And here we can check the amounts and then validate it. And we'll see in the email that so here is for the first invoice. So we put manager here to really show you that there is difference between the two. And in this one, the second invoice, which is from more than 50K.
So thanks, Dan and Charlotte, again. So really what we're planning to do is clearly make this as complicated as possible and to show you the lengths at which we can go. So the examples we've chosen is clearly around invoicing, which I hope is relevant to yourself. And what we're planning to do is to make sure that this is as real as possible. So let's continue with an example. So yeah, so Dan and Charlotte's going to go into this in a bit more detail, but in essence, this is obviously step 3 of the complicated or complicating, let's say, options around the workflow. But basically, there's 2 validation sequences that happen here. As we reflected on before, is there's a sequence above 50,000, and then essentially the important element, which sort of adds the element of complexity into this, is very much sort of how do you deal with non-EU or non-Commonwealth countries and how that gets dealt with. So really, hopefully, we can shed some light into that. So I'll pass it on to Di and Charlotte.
So in the third step of our demo, we are seeing the case from a non-EU nor Commonwealth country. So we still have so we enhance the workflow with adding some documents with here the EORI number, and then the manager, then the director are gonna validate this invoice before sending it. So what we are taking the same invoice as so the same template as we used to do, and we added here a new variable, which is the country, and then depending on that, the document is going to have new. Is going to be enhanced by new documents, and also it is going to have to be validated by the director, even though the total amount is under 50K. So here we can see that we have our invoice from Argentina, and also our new document added to the first one with the URI number. So if we validate it and then go to the director space, we are going to see that we have this document to approve, with here specified the total amount and the country. And if we accept it, we will receive an email. So if you're we can decline this kind of workflow in many ways. It is really personal. So if you would like to see one special workflow, do not hesitate to contact us. If you are interested to see how you could do this special review application on your own, then you can see it on our pro tips. So thank you, and over to you, Kevin.
Great, thanks for that, Dan and Charlotte. So what we feel that the session's brought is a bit more information about how to make your organization as intelligent as possible through automation. So I appreciate, as I mentioned before, it's not completely possible to automate your whole business, but especially when workflows and processes become important, it's important to recognize where and when, and build business cases to allow for that as much as possible. So really, I hope you're keen to learn more about our meetup session and learn a bit more from your peers, such as Wincanton, where I do plan to sort of push a few more clients to that area, that conversation, that community. So that gives you guys a bit more information and a bit more support around what this means for organizations like yourselves and how you can bring it in. Like, for example, Wincanton has done that for the last few years, actually, and start sort of working towards, especially with what's going on in the economy, has allowed a bit more flexibility and a bit more focus around automating these processes as much as possible. So the session, as I've mentioned before, the whole webinar series is focusing on going digital, which is very much focusing on communication, what that means to not just yourself, but also your customers, and go faster, which is in essence focused on engagement and how you can engage with your customers and allow them to ask the questions, get the response as quickly as possible, so that you can actually make sure that you're managing their expectation and delivering on their needs as much as possible. So the net result of that will be faster payments. The final element, which is the webinar we've just covered, in the session we've just covered, is really focusing on making go cost effective. In summary, what that basically means is making sure your organization is an intelligent, as intelligently automated as possible. As I've mentioned before, is not to do it comprehensively, but to start in small patches to get the benefits, to see the returns, and to move on from there. So start small and grow bigger. Or as I like to say, little by little, we'll improve a lot. So really, what this session is designed for is to give you a bit more exposure into our world and basically taking documents capability further, not just from our perspective, but to help you as an organization enhance that. So the session is designed to grow a community, especially around logistics, to learn from each other and importantly share that as well. So let's continue. So these are my details, and please take note of the QR code. Hover your mobile phone via your picture, I think it is, where you want to take a picture, and the QR code thing activates and takes you straight to my LinkedIn page. So hopefully that could be of use to stay connected with me specifically. If you have any questions, please use my email address, and if there are any specifically related to Di and Charlotte, send them to me and I'll forward them on to yourself. If you fancy a conversation about this, clearly feel free to dial up my number and we can organize a further session, or just a quick chat about it. So hope that session's been useful. As you may well reflect upon the previous session, we are using these sessions to connect with customers like Wincanton, so that they can share at a peer-to-peer level a bit more detail about how we work together and what we do together, and the visions we have together, and how Compleo has helped Wincanton in the past for a number of years now. So, as I mentioned before, we're setting up a meetup group, meetup session. Feel free to connect with me via my email address, and I'll share a bit more information about that and when the next session is. I think the next session is actually quite soon, so feel free to do that. Obviously, no session will be complete without the synonymous social media feeds. The conversation will be continuing after this series in our Twitter feed, but as I mentioned, feel free to connect via LinkedIn and see more videos via our YouTube page. I've included I think it's the hashtags or the notes of how to find us on those social media feeds, but feel free to connect with us, share our content as well, and we'll obviously actively be answering any questions as time continues. So hopefully the session's been useful. The series has been useful as well, and feel free to connect with us, as I mentioned, and share and involve other colleagues where you feel right to do so. So hopefully the session being great for you. It's enjoyable to make this session. I appreciate making these webinars for you, and hopefully we can do it in the future a bit more detailed. Feel free to ask any questions if you want to make some adjustments to the webinar series, or you've got a specific requirement to demo that you want to see. We can happily schedule some time together and involve and relate it to your specific needs. So thanks very much from myself and Di and Charlotte, and hope to hear from you soon.